story begins with Ben Hawkins driving his rig down Interstate 40, heading west towards California. It's a typical night on the road, with the highway stretching out endlessly before him, illuminated only by the headlights of his truck and the occasional passing car. The CB radio crackles with the usual chatter, truckers exchanging route updates, sharing stories, and keeping each other company on the long haul. Ben's mind races as he tries to make sense of what's happening. The voice on the radio isn't following the usual CB protocols, and there's something unnatural about the way it knows his every move. He begins to suspect that the voice isn't coming from another trucker, but from something else entirely, something that's not human. As Ben drives deeper into the night, the road ahead becomes more treacherous. The voice on the radio grows increasingly frantic, warning him of an impending danger that's getting closer with every mile. It tells him to take a sharp turn onto a side road, one that's not marked on his map. Ben hesitates, but the urgency in the voice convinces him to follow its directions. The side road is narrow and winding, cutting through the desert like a scar. The headlights reveal little beyond the next bend, and the darkness around him feels alive with unseen threats. The voice continues to guide him, but there's a change in its tone, a sense of fear, as if whatever is on the other end is as frightened as he is. Suddenly the truck's headlights catch something in the road, a figure standing still in the middle of the lane. Ben slams on the brakes, the tires screeching as the truck skids to a stop just inches from the figure. It's a man, or at least it looks like one, but there's something off about him. His clothes are tattered, his skin pale and lifeless, and his eyes are vacant, staring straight ahead. Before Ben can react, the figure disappears, vanishing into thin air. The CB radio crackles again, the voice urging Ben to keep moving, to get out of there as fast as he can. The sense of danger is palpable, and Ben feels a cold sweat break out across his skin as he puts the truck in gear and floors the gas pedal. The road becomes a blur as Ben speeds down the narrow lane, the landscape around him warping and shifting like a nightmare. The voice on the radio becomes more insistent, its warnings blending into a chaotic mix of static and distorted sounds. Ben can hear other voices now, whispering in the background, their words unintelligible, but filled with a sense of dread. As he rounds a bend, the road suddenly ends, dropping off into a deep ravine that wasn't there moments before. Ben slams on the brakes, the truck skidding to a stop at the edge of the drop. The radio goes silent, the voice cut off mid-sentence, leaving Ben alone in the oppressive darkness. The silence is deafening as Ben sits in the cab, his heart pounding in his chest. The road ahead is gone, replaced by an endless void, and the only sound is the ticking of the truck's cooling engine. He knows he's been led here for a reason, but he doesn't understand why or by whom. As he tries to gather his thoughts, the CB radio crackles to life one last time. The voice returns, softer now, almost apologetic. It tells Ben that he was saved from a terrible fate, that the road he was on wasn't what it seemed, and that he was being lured into a trap by something malevolent. The voice fades, leaving Ben with a final warning. Never take the same route twice, and never ignore the signs. The radio falls silent, and Ben is left alone in the stillness of the desert night. He knows he has to find a way back to the main road, but the landscape around him is unrecognizable, as if he's been transported to another place entirely. The moon hangs low in the sky, casting an eerie light over the twisted terrain. Ben is in good spirits, making good time and enjoying the solitude of the open road. The night is calm, the sky clear and filled with stars, and the desert landscape around him is bathed in the cool, pale light of the moon. The miles roll by, and Ben feels at peace, content with the rhythm of the road. With no other options, Ben turns the truck around and begins to retrace his route. The road behind him is different, the turns and bends unfamiliar, but he follows the path as best he can. After what feels like hours, he finally sees the lights of a distant highway, a beacon of safety in the darkness. Ben pulls onto the highway, the familiar hum of the road beneath the tires bringing a sense of relief. He drives on, the events of the night replaying in his mind, trying to make sense of what happened. The CB radio is silent, the channel clear, but Ben can't shake the feeling that the voice is still out there, watching over him. The story ends with Ben reaching a truck stop, the first light of dawn breaking over the horizon. He pulls in and parks the truck, exhausted but grateful to be alive. As he steps out of the cab, he glances at the CB radio, half expecting it to crackle with one last message. But it remains silent, and Ben knows that whatever saved him is gone, at least for now. As he walks into the truck stop, the morning sun warming his face, Ben reflects on the events of the night. He knows he'll never forget the voice on Channel 40, and he'll always wonder who or what was on the other end. But he's also learned to trust his instincts and to never take the road for granted again. As he approaches a particularly desolate stretch of the highway, the CB radio crackles to life with an unfamiliar voice. The voice is calm, almost soothing, but there's an underlying urgency to it. It calls out to Ben by his handle, Hawk, warning him of danger ahead. The voice tells him to be cautious, to watch out for something on the road that he can't see yet. Ben is startled. The voice knows his handle, but he doesn't recognize it. He asks who's on the line, but the voice doesn't respond, instead repeating the warning with more insistence. The connection is clear, with no static or interference, and the tone is almost otherworldly, as if the speaker is close but not quite in the same reality. As Ben continues driving, he can't shake the feeling of unease the call has left him with. The voice was too specific, too knowing, and it's made him hyper-aware of his surroundings. The highway ahead is dark and empty, with no sign of other vehicles, and the desert landscape feels more foreboding than usual. The CB radio crackles again, and the same voice returns, this time with a more urgent warning. It tells Ben that he's approaching a dangerous area and that he needs to pull over immediately. The voice sounds more insistent, almost pleading, as if it's trying to save him from something unseen. Ben's instincts tell him to listen, but his rational mind pushes back. He's a seasoned trucker, and he's never encountered anything on the road that he couldn't handle. Still, the voice is unsettling, and the calm, clear night now feels charged with an unseen menace. He decides to pull over at the next rest stop, but as he drives, the warnings become more frequent and more desperate. The voice starts giving him specific instructions, telling him to take certain exits, avoid certain lanes, and be prepared for anything. The calls are clear, almost too clear, and Ben realizes that the voice seems to know exactly where he is and what he's doing, even when he doesn't respond. As he follows the voice's instructions, Ben starts to notice strange occurrences. The lights of the rest stops flicker as he passes, casting long, eerie shadows. The road signs seem to change, their lettering shifting as if they're alive. The desert around him feels like it's closing in, the vast openness turning into a suffocating trap.